and welcome to the Choose Love podcast, a show that chronicles the extraordinary love of ordinary people. Our hope is that these stories will help inspire us all to #choose love. The podcast is presented by Ellen Adira, your digital bridesmaid. We're here to take your squad moments to the next level and help curate your bridal style so that you can focus on love. My name is Steve Hayton, and I will be your host. Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to be doing this, and I think today the best way to get things going is to tell you about my own story between me and my wife. We've been together now for about 5.5 years, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from the US, I'm from London in the UK, and that's where we met. We're now living together in Los Angeles, and we've been here for about 7 months now, so still very fresh to the West Coast. For me, it's a completely new country. For her, she was raised in New York State, so she's very much an East Coast girl, and now trying to settle down on the West Coast. And we love it. Wow. I mean, for me, our relationship, it's been about difference. It's been about change. You know, we both met online through OKCupid.com, and we would never have met had it not been for that. Our paths would never have crossed. You know, we are different ethnicities, we're different religions, we're different nationalities. So on paper, we're both very different people. But one thing about it is that we both had very similar upbringings. Her family migrated over from India when she was 4 years old, and so it was drilled into her, that immigrant mentality of you have to work hard, you've got all this opportunity in front of you now, and you need to seize it, you need to make the most of it. And for me in the UK, it was a bit more classical, it was a bit more British pride. You are the flag bearer for the family, you need to study hard, you need to make a name for yourself, and you need to take this family forward. And so we both grew up instilled with that mentality of being quite ambitious and driven. And so I guess that in spite of our differences, it wasn't really a surprise that we clicked and managed to get on so well. And so it was late November in 2013. Vignatha, my wife, was in the UK studying. She was just finishing a degree at London Business School, and I too had just finished studying. I'm a year older than her, so I'd finished my degree and I was already in work. I was living at home with my family, and I was sick of it. I was getting tired. I wanted to go. I was living in my room, but the trouble was that in the UK it was just so expensive to try and get out and live on your own. It just really wasn't that possible. And for Vignatha, she had just finished her studies and was now looking to move into her first job in the UK. And so our paths crossed at a very opportune moment. It was a time when we were both looking for something more. We were both, even though we were both very different people, we'd both got to the same sort of stage in our lives. And what drew me to Vignatha's profile, and one of the things that I loved about online dating, was that you were able to instantly vet people. You know, gone were the days where you would go into a bar or a club and you'd have to try and sift through different people to find out if they were, suitable, if they were compatible. Now, here was a way that you could vet people incredibly quickly and figure out who was right for you. Vignatha's profile stood out to me because it was a little bit geeky and it was very strange. She'd mentioned on there about her love of PowerPoint presentations, and that immediately stood out to me from all the other profiles that I'd been looking at. And I guess one of the reasons it stood out was because of that sort of drive and ambition that fuels us both. What was going through my mind at the time was, wow, she must be serious about her future, her career, where she's going, because she's talking about PowerPoint presentations. And the other thing that was great about that was she gave a great jumping off point. So I messaged her for the first time and I said, do you normally talk to people in PowerPoint format? I quite like the idea of that. I think I might give it a go. Next slide. My name is Steve. I too work for a startup based in southwest London. I'm thoroughly enjoying rising up through the ranks after completing my master's degree almost exactly 2 years ago. Next slide. You seem to have a nice profile and it'd be great to chat. Next slide. Please feel free to visit my profile and ask any questions. That concludes my presentation. And she replied,
Love it. PowerPoint style is the best. I tend to be very career-driven as well. Glad to be done with school and back in the working world. Your profile intrigued me. What is the one magic trick you know how to do? I used to have a card magic book when I was younger. It came with a deck of trick cards, and I used to be able to do a number of sleight of hand tricks. Unfortunately, I've become less magical as I've gotten older.
On my profile, I had actually written on there that I knew a single magic trick as a way of trying to give women a jumping off point, a reason for them to start a conversation or have something to pick up on so that we could, get conversation going. And so when she asked me what my magic trick was, I replied and said, I don't think I can tell you. It's spoil the magic. It's a coin sleight of hand trick, and when it works, it's great. And when it doesn't, well, it's just funny. Win-win. You'd have been a great Harry Potter character. The big final fight is happening, and you're in the background straining to make a pencil levitate. Everyone can see you're losing your edge, but bless you, you're trying your best. Trying different ones, putting emphasis into your pronunciation. Next scene, you're on the checkout at Walmart serving Harry whilst having a very awkward conversation about what he's up to. She said,
I laughed so much when I read your story, but no, I refuse to be a squid. I'll dig out my old set of card tricks and get my magic back.
And conversation sort of grew naturally from there. We got quite a way into talking. She explained how she was working for a company that was dealing with outdoor media. So billboards was what she said to me. And I said to her, so I realize I don't know your name. I might have to call you Bill based on what I know about your job. Bill, how did you get your job? You said you're from New York. What made you decide to come study in England?
Bill?
She said.
You could have chosen a girl's name at least. Very well then. In return, I shall call you Stephanie instead of Steve.
Fine. Bill and Stephanie it is. So it was about 2 weeks of sending messages backwards and forwards until I plucked up the courage to ask her out for dinner. And so I got to the end of a message, and I took so long crafting these messages. I was just relentless about proofreading and going over it again and again and making sure that, if I put humour into it, that it was right and it was all going to go perfectly. Part of the reason why I loved the whole online dating experience was because it gave me time to really think, really craft a good and decent message. And so I said, so how do you fancy going out for a drink/dinner at some point?
A dinner or drink sounds great. Here's my number. Give me a shout out and we can coordinate something.
So I found a number of different restaurants and sent her free links that she could pick her favourite. She picked one, and at the start of December, about 3 weeks after we started talking, we went out for our first meal. And it went well, we met up, and it was, as it always is, it's very nerve-wracking. You're meeting someone for the first time. We went out for Italian, and we had pasta and wine. And it came to the end, and by this point, I felt like I had a really good gauge on who she was. We'd been speaking for 3 weeks, and I could tell that she was, strong and independent. She, was a feminist who was out in the world on her own. She'd come halfway across the world to the UK to study and to start work. So I said, "Do you want to split the check?" And that was controversial. At the time, she was cool about it, but afterwards I found out that I nearly didn't get onto a second date. She was expecting me to be chivalrous and offer to pay the full check. But I was trying to show respect. I was trying to show that I saw her as being equal, and that I didn't feel like it was my duty as the man to pay the bills and pay for food, and that I valued equality. And that was interesting because, as it later transpired, her experience of American men turned out being very different of her experience of European men. She found that European men were a lot more modern in their approach and their thinking, and the American men tended to be a lot more, well, chivalrous, which you might not expect with your preconceptions of the UK and the typical Englishman. So after we went for the meal, we went to a pub and we had a few drinks, and it went really well. We decided to meet again after that, so we went out for dinner a few more times. And then it became a little bit awkward because she was on a study visa in the UK, and as she transitioned from studying into her job, she lost that visa and she had to go back to the US to sort out her visa and her sponsorship back into the UK for her first job. So as we were developing our relationship, we were torn apart and she was sent back to the US for a few months. And during that time, we kept talking regularly. We would have Skype calls to see how we were getting on. And towards the end of that 3 months, I was presented with the opportunity to travel to Los Angeles to work and to spend 2 weeks seeing the LA side of the business for the company that I was working for. And so when I went out there, I was lucky enough to be staying in an apartment that was owned by the CEO of my company. It was overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so I said to Vignatha, "Why don't you come out here? Why don't we meet up in LA for the second week of my visit?" And I was really shocked and surprised when she said, "Yes, okay, let's do it." So she got on a plane and flew over to LA. This was the first time she'd ever been to the West Coast. It was a bit strange for me because it was moving quicker than I would have perhaps anticipated. But I kind of just went with it. I just kind of went with what felt good, what felt right. And it felt right to just meet up. Why not? Let's do it. And that became a bit of a theme for our relationship. So come to the end of our time in LA, we decided to become official. And it wasn't long after that we decided to move in with each other back in the UK. And one of the great things about moving in together so quickly was that we were able to learn. It was like a fast track course into learning about the other person. What do they like? What do they not like? What can they stand? What can't they stand? How do you delegate responsibility? How do you split tasks? So we went on this roller coaster ride of discovery and learning about each other in such a short period of time. So we lived in a number of different places around London. We moved as my office moved, and eventually we got into a position where we were able to purchase our first home. And that was a huge deal for me. That was a massive step. And I think that, for me internally, was what made me realise that the time was right. The time was right to propose. And that, along with the not so subtle hints that I'd been receiving from my future wife, including tactically using her sister to make suggestions about getting married, sending me pictures of rings and Pinterest boards about wedding rings, along with the not so subtle hints from her sister of, "When are you gonna get married? You're so slow." And I have to apologise for that American accent, but it is quite accurate. So now that I've offended you all with that very poor American accent, we'll go to a quick break, and afterwards I'll explain a little bit more about how I proposed and the wedding.
This podcast is brought to you by Elle and Adira, your digital bridesmaid. We're here to take your squad moments to the next level and help curate your bridal style. We've teamed up with some of the best creators from around the world to offer highly curated collections of bridal trinkets and adornments. Visit ellenadira.com and let us help make you and your closest friends feel like the absolute babes you are on your special day.
Welcome back. So, for the proposal, I wanted to do something special. I wanted to do something that was a little bit different, but at the same time, money was tight. We really didn't have a penny to our name at that point. I was a big fan of a comedian in the UK called Lee Evans, and Lee Evans does a sketch of the popular Queen song Bohemian Rhapsody, and to that song he actually he performs to that song. So, for instance, the start of the song, it's talking about, and I'm not going to sing, but one of the lines is, "Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening." And to that, you see him on the stage cowering from the lightning. And so I thought I would take that idea and use it myself. So I shot a collection of videos of myself miming to Lionel Richie, "My Destiny." So one of the things that I did was that I went into the office and I collected together my staff members and I said to them, I need you to get on top of the van and throw a bucket of water on me. And they were beside themselves. They thought it was Christmas and birthday all rolled into one. They couldn't believe they were going to get the chance to drench their boss. And the reason why I asked them to do that was because one of the opening lines is laughter through the rain. And so we shot this scene of me laughing, and then out of the scene the guys dropped a bucket of water on me. And when it came to editing that video, I edited it in a storm cloud. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of how that worked. So we went through that song, sort of acting it out, and I got quite creative. So I took a desk chair out onto the communal lawn, and it was a swiveling chair, and so I sort of held the camera at arm's length and spun myself round on this chair. So you couldn't see the chair, all you could see was the background spinning behind me and me stationary, so it sort of looked like this 1970s music video. And then what I also added in there was I managed to collect together some of Vignatha's family members and some of my family members, and I made them mime to certain parts of the song. So in this proposal video, every now and then one of her family members would just appear and would be singing the song. So she had her mum in there and her sister and a cousin, and my parents were in there singing as well. So it was this really nice, feel-good experience. So when it came to the day of the proposal, we were in New York. We were at Vignatha's parents' house, and I managed to get rid of Vignatha. I can't remember what she was doing. I think she went out with some friends. And so during that time, myself, her mother, and her sister, we all sort of pitched in to help set the scene. So we went down to a local dollar store and we bought some tea lights. Vignatha's sister actually went and bought some rose petals. And so we scattered these rose petals along the driveway and the lawn, sort of leading towards the back of the house where there was this reasonably large deck. And sort of it was a tree-lined lawn, very nice and green. It was very private, and I was able to hide sort of around the corner and just beneath the deck because it was raised off the ground. So what we did was that we brought the TV out. We put the TV on the deck against the wall of the house, and then we surrounded it with tea lights. And then I laid out a picnic mat on the ground, again with tea lights and rose petals around it, and the remote control of the TV, and a little sign saying, press play. So at this point, we're now waiting for Vignatha to come home. And her sister says to me, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "No." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because it just feels right. I'm ready." And so a few minutes later, Vignatha's car pulls up in the driveway. So at this time, I had the ring hidden around the corner just beneath the deck. Obviously, I was wearing a suit. She came home, she saw the rose petals, and you could hear her say, "Oh my God." And then she walked along the path, followed the rose petals. Obviously, at this point, she knew what was happening, but it was still a bit of a surprise about how it was going to happen. So she pressed play, and then Lionel Richie, My Destiny, started to play. And she started to laugh as she saw these different clips of me getting drenched by, this water, and me miming and doing all this strange acting. And then it got through that first part of the song, and then the sort of montage came on, and the montage with my recorded message. And this is that montage. This is that message that was played. Being with you is like winning the lottery every day. Seriously, I'm happier than a tea pig with a beer or an ice cream. And sure, you spend a disproportionate amount of time asleep, or at times a little clumsy, often asleep, and a little strange. None of that matters to me, because I think you're perfect, like Nando's chicken wings, even when you're asleep. And although at times you scare me, confuse me, like that time you tried to water the paving stones for fun, or just don't understand my accent, you should know that whenever you find yourself lost, or being chased by a pack of wild ducks, I'll come find you and put you in a castle to keep you safe. A bit like Sleeping Beauty. She liked to sleep as well. I don't care that you can't kick a ball or effectively control a land yacht, because I understand who you are. When you're surprised, angry, and distracted. Because at the end of the day, you look after me. When I'm tired at the end of a long day, when I need the strength to carry on, and when I eat too much. So for all of these reasons, I wanted to say that I love you. I want to have 1,000 more of these memories from now until forever. And so, as this narration came to an end, I tried to be really quiet and sneak up behind her by climbing over the rail on the deck. And it didn't work. She heard me fumbling over the fence. I didn't fall, but I stumbled. But it didn't matter. It all had gone so well, and I was there behind her on one knee and offered the ring up to her. And she said yes. So we decided that we would host the wedding in Connecticut, just outside of a town called New London, ironically enough. So it was a summer wedding. We were married at a place called Branford House, which was an old English-style manor house that's now owned by the University of Connecticut. You step out of this mansion house onto the lawn, and you've just got this panoramic view of the ocean. It's gorgeous. You've got a lighthouse, and just the sea, the sound of the waves. So it was an amazing venue, absolutely amazing venue, and so hidden you wouldn't have expected it to be sitting there. So the whole idea was that we'd have this English-style manor house as a sort of homage to my English roots, but obviously host the wedding in America. So for me, it was a big deal, because most of my friends and family, had never actually been to America. My parents, in fact, didn't even have a passport. They'd never left the UK. And obviously at this time, I know that I'm going to go and live in America at some point. So I want to make sure that my parents enjoy it. I want to make sure that they're comfortable with going to the airport, getting on the plane, coming to America, because I want them to come and visit me in the US. So the wedding turned into a sort of a 2-week affair. The first week, Vignatha was prepping and preparing for the wedding. I was being the entertainment. I was being the host. So I took my parents and a few of my friends. We flew over to New York City. We got an Airbnb in Union City, just outside the city. It had this amazing view of Manhattan. It was absolutely sensational. And overall, it went really well. We saw the major sites. We went on bus tours and all the stuff that you do when you're in New York City. And then towards the end of the week, we made our way up to Connecticut. I went and rented an old Chevy bus of this woman, and it was terrible. It was absolutely horrendous. It was falling apart at the seams, but that was it. That was the wedding vehicle. So obviously at that time, none of my friends or family had ever been to the US, let alone driven in America. So I drove everyone from New York City up to Connecticut, and we spent a few days on the beach and sort of looking around. I'm absolutely exhausted at this point. I don't want to be a tour guide, but I want my friends and family to enjoy it. And the wedding just creeps up on me. Before I know it, wow, okay, we're here now. It's the wedding day. What do I do? Right, okay, so, we all met at a hotel, and there's the standard sort of trials and tribulations as stuff goes missing, and someone hasn't turned up, and these two are arguing, and these two have fallen out. But we get to the big day. And I wake up with this sense of excitement that I've not really ever had before. And I feel like a part of it was because it just sort of crept up on me. And I realized what a big day it is. What a milestone. This is day one of forever. And people were saying to me, how are you feeling? Are you nervous? And I'm going, no, why would I be nervous? I'm excited. This is it. This is it. We're doing it. So, I got dressed and we bought a really nice Hugo Boss suit, and I just loved it. Just looking at myself, and I felt like the man. I felt like the Don. Look at this, I'm in charge. So we collected up my parents. We got in the car. We gave a few of Vignatha's friends a lift in this Chevy bus. My parents were obviously suited and booted, ready to go as well. So we took some pictures with the ocean in the background, and it was really special. And that moment is getting closer and closer. I'm now being asked by the official to find Vignatha. We need to get going. And I'm like, well, I can't go find her. I can't go see her now. I need to find someone else to do that. And it turns out that Vignatha's not happy because the priest has started doing his blessings on my parents. And as it turned out, he wasn't following the script. This wasn't the plan. He wasn't supposed to start at the time that he started. So it just looked like that he got bored and just started to kick it off. So she got the call to come out. She wasn't happy, and things didn't quite go to plan. So because of that, the music wasn't quite ready for when she started to walk. And it was just a bit of a mess. But, my first act leading into marriage was to calm my wife down and try and bring a sense of normalcy before we go and get married. So, I'm trying to say to her, look, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the cock-ups, right? This is about us. This is about our first day as man and wife, right? Forget the detail. Forget that stuff. Let's do this. Let's get married, We get stuck in. We get into the service, and I realize that I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never been in a Hindu wedding before. I've seen one, but I've never been in one. So I'm sort of learning as I'm going along, and I'm told to, here, hold this, okay, now do this. And I'm sort of doing it. I'm thinking, God, I hope I'm not messing this up. I hope I'm doing it right. And then before I know it, it's my time to shine.
Vignatha, my assertive nature comes from a desire to live my life with no regrets and without looking back, because life is too short. I live my life to be the best possible version of myself. I choose you, simply because your love, determination, and strength makes me feel like I can achieve anything to become that best possible person. Your aspirations fuel my desire to improve. Your strength makes me stronger, and your happiness elates me. And so this becomes the easiest promise that I'll ever have to make. I vow to you, Vignatha Reddy, to be your knight. I will defend you and stand by you with unquestioned loyalty. When you're weak, I will empower you. When you're sad, I will embrace you. And when you're angry, I will keep you calm. Or keep out of the way.
Steve, from the moment we met, I felt that I had found my other half that I never knew was missing. Your love and patience bring so much calm and happiness into my life, and your unwavering support gives me the strength to take on the world. Today, as I take you to be my husband, I give you this ring as a symbol of my love and make you these vows. I promise to love you unconditionally and provide you lifelong friendship and companionship. I promise to share in your dreams and support your goals. I promise to trust you, respect you, and care for you. I promise to embrace you as my family and my partner in life. I love you.
The whole experience, we spent an entire day, doing this, doing the pictures and meeting and greeting, speaking to people. And then, we get to the reception. We had the reception on the same day. We played the first dance song. And for me, that was really special because I sort of merged two songs together and cut together an acoustic version and then the normal version. When I added in there Will Young, an English singer, singing Your Love is King, originally by Sadie. And for me, music means so much, and so it was so special, so unique for me to be able to communicate that message through song. And people, at that time, I was talking to people about their own weddings and how it went, and they would say to me, I can't remember any of it. I don't remember any of my wedding. We just spent the day talking to people and doing this and doing that. But for me, I can remember it clearly, and I think I always will remember it clearly, because for me it meant much more than just that day, just that celebration, to show my commitment. I was already committed. I knew that this was the woman that I wanted to be with for the rest of my life. There was no doubt to it. So it was about celebrating that. So I think Vignatha's sister, Shivani, actually worded it really well during her maid of honor speech during the wedding.
I believe that the best kind of marriage is the kind that makes you a better person without changing yourself completely, and the kind that brings out the brightest side of yourself. And I truly see that happening to Vignatha. Before she met Steve, she was kind of a psychopath. But now that she has Steve, she's still a psychopath, but a more happy, reasonable, bright one. They complement each other like salt and pepper, and yellow and purple, and always will.
She described us as being yellow and purple, and I thought that was quite strange. Yellow and purple didn't really complement each other. I'd always thought of it as being people would be two shades of the same colour, dark blue and light blue. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The contrast is complementary. In the strengths that my wife has versus my own strengths, create a partnership that just works really well together. To be able to support the other one at a time of need, to be able to keep them going, to keep them energized and motivated. It's rewarding. So I think on that note, we'll end my first ever episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to have you again for the next story. Until then, I hope you have a lovely week, and remember to #ChooseLove. If you enjoyed the podcast, then please share it with your friends and family.